Good morning, afternoon, or evening to you, my awesome watcher, listener, whatever you may be. This is episode 50. I'm very happy to be here. On the 50th episode of Toast, I decided that I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I'm not just going to choose a country and go with kind of random stories or journeys or adventures in that country, but instead, I'm actually just going to talk about one theme of stories. It's kind of a question that a lot of people ask of me after I travel so much. Like, you must have some weird stories, like where you almost died or things like this. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Stories where I almost died. Let's start with one of the earliest ones, I would say. A couple years ago, I would say like 2014, I was traveling in Croatia. I was with a couple friends. We met somebody in the hostel, and we decided that we were just going to take a bus and go to the beach somewhere. And I guess if anybody here has been to the Mediterranean coast, you know that the coasts and the beaches are quite like rocky, and there's a lot of different, cliffs and things like that going on. So when we got to the beach, we realized, wow, these are beautiful white cliffs just kind of looking over the beach. And I didn't really feel like being at the beach. If you know me, I'm not really much of a beach person. I'm more of like the mountain guy. So, I was kind of talking to the South African guy from the hostel, and I was saying like, hey, like, you want to go find a place where we could jump off of this cliff? So naturally, we kind of left my friends that I was traveling with. These were actually Montrealers that we were going to Tomorrowland with. And next thing we know, me and this South African guy just kind of walk up the cliff, and we're kind of looking down. We're looking over the ledge, like, okay, does that look good? Does that look safe? Does that look deep enough? Does it look like there's rocks? Whatever. So we're really kind of focusing on that. And my main concern was like, okay, well, does it look like we have a way that we can climb back up? Because we've walked enough that like it would be excruciating to like swim back to the beach, and we'd maybe need to like take breaks, get on the cliff like side just to like relax. And so we were kind of just concerned with like, okay, is there a way up, and does it look deep enough? That's kind of the thing that you want to look for when you're cliff jumping. And after a while we found a spot. And, naturally, you can't really decide who's going to go first. It's really unknown if it's even deep enough. We might hurt yourself. So, we rock, paper, scissors. And I lost. So that meant that I had to jump. And so we were kind of looking at it the way there was a few rocks in the sea, in the Mediterranean Sea or Adriatic Sea. And right there, like, I just decide, okay, well, between these three rocks, it looks like the best spot. So I jump in. I did not hurt myself. It was completely fine, actually. I kind of scream at him. I'm like, yeah, everything's good. No worries. You can come jump in. And what we didn't realize after he jumped in was the waves were kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we realized that behind us, so we were so fixated on looking down the cliff that we didn't even look out to the sea. And the Adriatic, as most people may know, or some people may know, is quite a, aggressive sea, to say the least. So lots of shipwrecks and things like over there. It's great if you're a scuba diver. And essentially this storm is brewing, and we're in the water. And that's the worst place to be when the storm is brewing, because we're next to a cliff and the waves are getting bigger. So now this was like a moment, and I'm not like the best swimmer. It's probably one of my bigger fears is just open water, like as far as you could see. So here I have open water as far as you could see, and like a cliff, which is not super inviting. But it looked like we had a way up. We kind of mapped it out a little bit, which is the most important part. But these waves are getting bigger. So like, naturally I was the first one in the water, so I'm the first one who's going to go up. So I know that he got in all right, and I'm waiting for these waves, and you're basically swimming against them the entire time because you're trying to, get yourself away from getting smashed into the cliff. And like I said at the beginning of this, it's very rocky, like it's not like a nice smooth cliff. It's like cliff that waves have been tearing at for millennia. And essentially they're just sharp, jagged rocks, and you're not really sure what to do or where to go. So I go up on the cliff and I say, all right, let's go. I'm doing it. And I get on the cliff, and I'm kind of moving, and I'm cutting my hands open. I really just cut my hand open maybe on the first hold that I got. And so I'm going for like the next hold, and then a wave comes and completely lays me out, hits me against the cave, or not the cave, the cliff, and I fall back into the water. At this point, obviously my new buddy, is looking at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." I'm like, "I'm just so freaking tired." And so I start like swimming out, and I'm like, "Okay, you need to make sure that you catch the wave on the top, the highest part, so that you can get high up on the cliff where now the waves can't hit you, or if they hit you, like they'll hit you how much like you've gone up." So basically, I got on a little bit lower than the peak of the wave itself, so that the next wave was kind of coming up, and even if I climbed, it still hit me, which is what happened. And naturally, this guy, kind of learned from my failure, so he got on a better part of the wave. He got onto the cliff, and he climbed up a little bit, and then like the second wave basically just hit his feet, so it didn't do that much damage. And then like he's waiting on the cliff, and he's saying like, "Be careful, it's super rocky, it's super sharp." And he's like showing me his hands are bleeding, my hands were bleeding, I'm in the water, and I'm exhausted. And I'm thinking in this moment, this was like maybe one of the first moments in my life where I was thinking, I might actually die here. Like this could be it. I was so tired because I was just constantly swimming away from the cliff, and the waves are getting bigger, and it starts raining, and it's getting kind of hard to see where I'm going. And obviously I wear glasses, so when I went and I jumped, I wasn't wearing glasses, so already like my vision wasn't the best that it could be. So there's a lot of kind of sacrifices. And at that moment, I kind of see a few people were coming, not coming, but looking at us from the top. And he's halfway up the cliff, which is quite a bit. But he's waiting for me to get on the cliff before he finishes the climb, basically, so that we could do it together in case whatever happened. So he was a good, buddy, stranger buddy. Essentially, naturally, I didn't die. So you can tell how the story goes. I get onto the wave. I get onto the cliff. I scramble. I'm cutting myself. And then the wave just hits like just the bottom of my feet. It didn't affect me too much. I was quite secure on my arm grip or hand holds at that point, I guess. And it was really like intense. But I was really happy because at the moment, like now you realize like how much adrenaline can just like fuel you. Like your life is just like ready to go. Like you could run a marathon in that moment. And we climbed to the top. There were like a few people there waiting for us, some of them actually being my friends who came out and looked for us. They're like, "Hey, these guys left to jump out off the cliff like a long time ago, wondering where we were." They found us at like kind of moment of almost death. So it was pretty interesting. All in all, we ended up going to like a small kind of sports medical facility. They patched us up. We didn't need any stitches. We were just scratched. We were kind of bleeding a little bit, like on the body, the hands, the feet. So it was quite uncomfortable. Up until pretty much Tomorrowland, I still remember having like big cuts and scars on my feet when I was dancing my life away for like 4 days. But these are good moments. You learn to look at the open sea before you jump into the water. So that's one of the stories of how I almost killed myself. But I have more. I think we should start maybe with one where, so none of these are going to be very violent. None of them are going to be anybody threatening me. The closest that I'll give to toast for that is the episode with Vince in Sevilla or Seville. You can go check out that episode if you want to hear it. I felt like I was almost going to die that day too, through violent means, but definitely not the story for today. Just my silliness, let's say. So the next one, let's kind of jump, I guess back. Yeah, I did this wrong. Let's jump back a few years, and I'm in Laos. And Laos is this small country, if you don't know it. It's kind of nested between Vietnam, Thailand, and China on the top, and Cambodia on the south. So it's kind of like a landlocked country, but very mountainous, very lush, and just primary beautiful rainforest. Picture, kind of like Central America, mountains, super green everywhere, animals that you've never heard of, making noises you've never heard in your life. Nothing quite as dramatic as a howler monkey, but they have some different interesting things there. So let's get to it. Van Vieng was this area or this town in Laos that was famous for this river that flooded every year, and people would go there because it was really beautiful. Then on the low season, when it wasn't flooding or wasn't going like super crazy rapids, people decided, oh my God, we should open bars. We should open establishments for people to enjoy this. And essentially what happened is along this river, you have a bunch of bars that were open. And essentially, you were going from bar to bar using the river as your road. So, I mean, we're talking going back like thousands of years here. We're using rivers as roads. And you're taking tubes. They're renting you tubes that they bring you from the town to the top of the river, or kind of top of where the bars start. And you're going from bar to bar. You leave your tube when you get in. And then when you're ready to leave this bar, there's the bars with the ping pong tables, volleyball, whatever. And then you get on the tube and you get into the water with your tube. And this person takes an empty water bottle or an empty Coke bottle attached to a string, and they just launch it at you. And, maybe it lands in the water, but it floats because it's empty. And so you can grab onto either the string or the bottle, and they reel you in. They're literally fishing humans. It was absolutely wild. And next thing you know, they just welcome you at every single bar with Lao Lao, which is pretty much like the Lao moonshine. So it's basically just homemade alcohol. You have no idea how strong it is, how good it is, how bad it is, whatever. You've probably tried moonshine, homemade alcohol. Don't recommend it. I get into these bars and, you're taking these free shots to the point where you don't really need to drink. At the time I was 21 years old. I didn't really have a huge tolerance anyway, so it was good. At some point you get to these bars that have these big slides. So like, okay, well, let's take the slide. And so you take the slide and then you end up in the river again. And, this kind of ends you in this situation. Like, do I go to the next bar? Do I go back to the bar where I just like slid off, like back to my friends, whatever? So that's kind of where I lost my friends. And that's where it got a little worrisome because, you're a drunk 21-year-old, you just lost your friends, and you're kind of at these random bars. Everybody kind of looks the same. Everyone's topless, drinking, partying. And surely they were looking for me. Next thing I know, I find some friends. They come back and we decide, hey, the slide wasn't wild enough. There's this huge platform. It was probably about 10 to 15 meters, so like 30 to 40 feet, let's say. And we're basically like, okay, let's jump off of this thing into the river. By the way, for note, kind of the danger aspect of this, they shut down Van Vieng like 2 years after I went, because what happened was too many people were dying every year. There were like hundreds of people dying, mainly Australians, because that's where Vietnam was kind of getting, and Laos was mainly getting its tourism from back then. Now it's a little bit more international to travel. It's not in 2011. So they actually shut down Van Vieng tubing because it was too dangerous. And I could see it, because when I jumped off that thing, I think that was my first concussion of my life. It definitely was not my last concussion, but it was for sure my first concussion. I was completely like knocked out. I was in the water, floating down. My friends thought I was dead. And finally, I was kind of lucky. I washed up a little bit on the shore. I came to my senses. And I was kind of like, where are we? What's going on? Why are we here? So I was completely out of it, confused as to like who I was or why we were there. And so from that moment forward, like my friends kind of just kept an eye on me. They gave me water. I wasn't drinking any more alcohol. And we were just kind of breezing through the storm that is the Vang Vieng bar hopping on the river. So luckily, again, I didn't die. Pretty bad, silly story. I don't suggest it. But at least now Van Vieng is closed, so you can't really do that. So that was a limited time experience, and not everybody lived to tell the story. So I'm very grateful that I am. The last story that I have is probably my favorite. It's also the most recent. It was here in Egypt, where I would love to be right now, but I'm not. In Dahab, which I was talking about in a story or a post that I just posted a few days ago. You should check it out. Dahab's awesome. I went hiking. I made a lot of friends in Dahab, at a good community, as I was saying there. And so I was kind of becoming a hiking guide, and I decided like, hey, I wanted to go just do some more discovery hike. There was a book of trails that was like somebody had made, and I hadn't done all of them. So I was like, okay, let's try to do this one, and put some of these cairns, so like stacked rocks, to create a trail so that later I can bring people here, because people are asking me to take them into the mountains, and it'd be cool to take them to different hills every once in a while. Now, I'm with this French girl named Natasha, and we decide that we're going to, continue down, and we end up to this thing called like a slot canyon. So essentially that's like kind of like in the Jordan episodes, these like really cool canyons that are like carved by rivers over thousands of years. And so you have these really cool formations and it's really tight. So we're in this canyon, really enjoying it. And then we get to like just a wall, like an absolute cliff. And we're like, oh shit, okay. So we manage our way down, kind of going around a little bit. And we made it down the cliff. And we kind of knew where we were because you could see the water from up there. And so, you kind of always had your sense of direction. Worst case, we had our phones to kind of help point us in the right direction. So we knew that we were going back to the road now. The hike was over. We had laid it out. We'd been there maybe 3 hours or something. It was really cool. What happened is when we get into this valley out of where the canyon led to, we start hearing dogs. And not these cute little, poodles or whatever, but like big kind of Egyptian street dogs. And not just one or two, but like 10. And then 10 became 12 or 15. And then 15 became 20. And I'm not even joking. It was getting very worrisome. And my friend starts panicking. She's like, Jordan, they're going to eat us alive. It's Ramadan. They're going to eat us. They're hungry. Nobody's feeding them. We don't know who these dogs are and nobody's eating. It's Ramadan. It's the middle of the day. Jordan, we need to fucking get out of here. And I said, we can't go back. We saw the wall. It took us like a long time to get back down. Like, I don't know. Let's just wait. Let's see if like how they are, And so I kind of put Natasha in front of me. I know that dogs usually when they're coming to bite you, I can't show you my leg right now, but like essentially it's right on the back here behind the knee, that like meaty part on the top, kind of your quads, So they'll go for that. That's what dogs bite. Before they bite your, neck, your aorta, they sever your main artery. So essentially look for the behind the knee bite first, and then we should be fine if we can kind of avoid these. So, we see that there's a few nice dogs that are kind of being kind. So I'm petting them. Then there's one like definite like rabies dog. And she was like, Jordan, I don't like that dog. And I started laughing, nervous laughing. And I was like, I really don't like that dog. It looks straight up like Mufasa from The Lion King. He's scary. He's a scary looking dog. He looks like he's ready to just like kick me into the cliff. So now 20 dogs kind of turns into like 30. And at this point, like I'm scared, Natasha's scared, and I'm trying to just keep her calm so that I can also keep myself calm. But in reality, I was absolutely losing my mind. And so these dogs are circling us, and we're kind of like in this huge valley. And I was like, okay, maybe like, because they can't eat us. Definitely they can't eat us. They're big enough and there's enough of them. And I know that if one dog takes that bite and I punch it in the face or kick it in the face, then the other dogs are going to jump on me. So I need to make sure, A, that I don't get bit if I can, and B, that if I do get bit, that I don't punch the dog in the face, which is pretty much a natural reaction to a dog biting you, is that you deck it in the face. So I didn't want to deck it in the face. And essentially, a few were kind of getting these little bites in. And I was getting nervous. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I said, Natasha, let's go up on one of these, because we're in a valley. Let's go up on one of these hills. At least we can have higher ground. And that'll be like, better for us if we need to start fighting them off, kicking them off or whatever. Then we look up the kind of hill and there's like 6 dogs on the hill. And then we look on the other hill and there's like 8 dogs on that hill. And I said, okay, well, it looks like we really don't have a choice here. We have to walk through this. Like, we know that the road is down there. We know that our back is to this wall of a canyon drop that used to be a waterfall, certainly, who knows how long ago. And we can't go up any of these because, they're already kind of protected. Like, they have the guards on duty. So it wasn't looking good. And so we kind of progressed really slowly, walking slowly. I kept Natasha behind me. I kept an eye on my back and kind of we just walked and stopped, kind of made good friends, good buddies with a few dogs and a few aggressive ones that were more barky and kind of bitey. We're kind of just trying to avoid them. And the other dogs were starting to defend us a little bit. As we're walking through this valley, it starts getting really intense because we run into more and more dogs, like to the point where I think the total must have come to about 70. And that's lucky because we had about 20, 25 that were inside kind of like, yards or cages, I guess, outside of houses that looked very abandoned. But it's hard to tell when you're in, the desert in Egypt. Maybe somebody lives there. You never really know. It kind of looks like an abandoned building to like a Western person, but this could definitely be like a normal house for somebody who lives in the desert. So we weren't really sure. It kind of looked like somebody was taking them, especially because these dogs were fenced in. So someone was taking them in or taking care of them or feeding them. They obviously weren't eating us, and it was Ramadan. So if Ramadan is, Muslims don't eat for the month of Ramadan. It's a holy month. So they fast during the day. So essentially they feast all night. They eat a lot at night, and they eat nothing and drink nothing during the day. So that also kind of, indirectly makes all of the animals also fast during the day or not eat or drink, which is not very good for the animals and their temperament. So essentially, I'm here. I didn't die. All of these stories have happy endings because they didn't end the way that they could have ended. And we don't really know what the percentages of them, possibly ending in my death would have been. But essentially, I think I'm really grateful that I have these stories. I'm really grateful that I have these experiences coming out of them without, permanent damage, I guess, from the louse knocking my head on whether it was water or rock or whatever it was. I'm happy that I got out without getting eaten alive. And I guess the reason I've been saying these is because people ask me for these kind of dangerous stories or these, near-death experiences and things like that. And sometimes I wonder when I go on a trip, is this the last conversation I'm going to have with somebody? Is this like, how am I going to die? Right? And how are my parents going to hear about it? Because if they find out that I'm eaten alive by dogs, like I fucked up. Like I should have made better life decisions, and I should not like die from dogs. So I was always thinking like, what's the best way for me to die? Do I like break my leg in the mountains somewhere, doing something I love, and I'm like 5 days away from civilization. I like almost make it, but not quite. I don't know. Lots of interesting questions you get to ask yourself after 6 years of traveling. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Obviously, it's kind of different style from the normal one, but just kind of rushing through these stories as quickly as I can. Super happy to have made 50 of these toasts. I mean, I'm blessed that you're listening. I'm blessed that I even have the opportunity to record these and tell these stories. So thank you. Stay safe. Toast out.